welcome to Getting We're Going Healing, a place where we talk about mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being to help you learn to let go of the things that are holding you back from being your best, your greatest, your most authentic version of you. My name is Tovah, and I will be your guide today. So today I would like to talk about the idea of sitting with your feelings. And now this is not necessarily feel your feelings, though that is part of it. It's when the feeling feels so overwhelming that you feel like you need to act. You feel like you need to do something. For me, I experienced this a lot with my anxiety. I was given the diagnosis of general anxiety disorder as well as complex PTSD and a few other host of issues, ADHD, and things that make it difficult for me to be patient and sit with it. So that's been something I've been working on cultivating, is learning how to sit with feelings that come up, sit with sensations that come up, without feeling the need to jump to fix it, to make it go away, to sit with things that are uncomfortable and be okay with being uncomfortable. So, how do we do this? Now, as a mom, this is something that I've begun to learn in teaching my child. Having been a child of the 1980s, the way that I was parented was not with someone being able to teach me how to sit with my feelings. It was more that the adults didn't want to hear my feelings and told me to stuff them down and go away. I'm sure this is very familiar to anyone else who is a Gen X or millennial child. So, in learning how to parent my child, I've come across some spectacular and amazing books that have been written by authors to help teach children how to do these things. And one of the books that we found was recommended by other parents is called The Rabbit Listened by Cori Doerrfeld. And I want to take a minute and we'll just quickly read through the book. There's not much to it. It is a children's picture book, so there's not much to it. But I want to expand on those ideas in it. So let's take a minute to read it together, okay? If you are familiar with the book, then you will enjoy it. If you are not, I hope you get some good stuff from this book because I think it's a fantastic book. So, we're going to begin at the beginning. The Rabbit Listened by Cori Doerrfeld. One day, Taylor decided to build something. Something new. Something special. Something amazing. Taylor was so proud. But then, out of nowhere, things came crashing down. The chicken was the first on the scene. Cluck, cluck, what a shame. I'm so sorry this happened. Let's talk about it, cluck, cluck. But Taylor didn't feel like talking, so the chicken left. Next came the bear. Grrr, how horrible. I bet you feel so angry. Let's shout about it. Grrr, grrr, grrr. But Taylor didn't feel like shouting, so the bear left. The elephant knew just what to do. Trumpada! I can fix this. We just need to remember exactly the way things were. But Taylor didn't feel like remembering, so the elephant also left. One by one they came. The hyena, hee hee, let's laugh about it. The ostrich, gulp, let's hide and pretend nothing happened. The kangaroo, tisk tisk, what a mess. Let's throw it all away. And the snake, shh, let's go knock down someone else's. But Taylor didn't feel like doing anything with anybody. So eventually, they all left until Taylor was alone. In the quiet, Taylor didn't even notice the rabbit, but it moved closer and closer until Taylor could feel its warm body. Together, they sat in silence until Taylor said, "Please stay with me." The rabbit listened. The rabbit listened as Taylor talked. The rabbit listened as Taylor shouted. The rabbit listened as Taylor remembered and laughed. The rabbit listened to Taylor's plans to hide, to throw everything away, and to ruin things for someone else. Through it all, the rabbit never left. And when the time was right, the rabbit listened to Taylor's plans to build again. "I can't wait," Taylor said. "It's going to be amazing." What a wonderful little book. So here's what I want to share about that. Just like when Taylor built his castle out of his blocks, and then something happened. When those birds all came in and knocked down his tower, and then out of nowhere, things came crashing down. Now, how many times does that happen in your life? When you make these big plans for things and you have these ideas for things you want to do and you've got it all planned out down to who's going to say what, who's going to wear what, who's going to do what. And then right then, in the middle of all your plans, everything comes crashing down. Nothing goes the way that you planned. Nobody does the things that you expected. Nothing is received the way that you planned. Everything is going to crap. How many times does that happen? I know it happens a lot in my life. No matter when I overly plan things, it ends up that that's never how it goes. And then what happens is then I get frustrated because I had a plan in my head and it didn't go the way that I had planned in my head. And I keep trying to put it back on plan and nothing goes back on plan. And then I get more and more frustrated and more upset because it's going farther and farther from how I expected it to go. When I'm in that space, I am most definitely in my ego space because your ego wants to plan. Your ego wants things to go the way it envisioned it, as if you are playing out a play, as if you are acting out scenes and everyone does exactly as you expect them to. But we all know that's not how life works. Life doesn't go the way that you expect it to. Just like Taylor found out when his tower came down, the most unexpected thing happened and it all came crashing down. And just like Taylor, we often end up with people who notice that things are crashing down. And you'll notice this when we post on social media. If we happen to share the problems we're going through or that we're having a tough time, more often than not, what happens is well-meaning loved ones, well-meaning friends, family members come in and begin to give you advice on what you should do. They all want to fix it. They want to fix how you're feeling to make you not feel that way. And they're not doing it, just like the animals in this book, they're not doing it out of harm. They're doing it out of care. They're doing it out of their own love and well-being for you. Or in this book, Taylor, when we get the chicken and the chicken says, "I'm so sorry this happened. Let's talk about it." And we all have those friends too that say, "I'm so sorry that happened to you. Let's talk about those things." And sometimes we might share a story as a way to connect with our friend about how when that thing happened to us, how it made us feel. The problem with that is that just like the chicken, Taylor didn't want to talk. And if our loved one doesn't want to talk, it can be overwhelming for them when they don't want to talk and we push them to talk. We say, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Let's talk about it. Let's keep talking about it. Let's talk about it. But when you're in those emotions, you don't necessarily want to talk about it. It might be too much to talk about. Your feelings might be too big and you don't have words to say things the way that you want to say them. So that might be advice that becomes challenging. And if many people give that advice, it can be incredibly frustrating. We also might get our friends who are like the bear, who say, oh, that's so horrible. I'm angry on your behalf. I'm so angry and I want to fix it and I'm going to be angry and you should be angry too. And let's get angry. Now, in our lessons, we've talked before about rage and anger and how it can be a useful tool when looking to enact change. It can push you to motivate you to do things where passivity might not, where you might just allow the status quo. Sometimes being angry can push us to act, to move, to make change happen. As we learn from our African goddess card of the Medusa, that rage can be an incredibly useful emotion when harnessed and used in the right way. But trying to push someone to be angry and to act out of anger when they're not isn't helpful either, right? And then we've got the elephant. The elephant comes in and says, I know what to do. I can fix it. We just need to remember exactly like it was. And this can be when we tell other people, you should, this is what we can remember. We remember these things and we push them to remember instead of allowing. Because again, we want to fix their feelings. We know that they're having a hard time and we want to make them feel better. Then we've got the hyena that says, let's laugh about it. And when our friends can be hurt, we could do the same thing. Let's laugh about it when they're not ready to laugh. Let's hide from it and pretend it didn't happen. And sometimes we might do that when we say to someone, oh, just let it go, move on, just let it go. And they're not ready to let it go. We're hiding from it. We're running from it. And that, again, that advice is coming from a well-meaning place, but that doesn't help. That's what a mess. Let's throw it away, says the kangaroo. Or the snake, let's go do it to someone else. Let's make someone else feel the pain that we're feeling. Let's make someone else feel the discomfort that we're feeling. All of those things are coping mechanisms that could be used. The problem is they're not always the best coping mechanisms, and they externalize our feelings instead of internalizing them. Instead, we want to do what Taylor did. Now, I want to bring up just a quick point about how all of those animals came to help Taylor. And in each of them, when Taylor didn't want to take their advice, they got upset. They got upset that Taylor didn't want their advice. Now, this is ego on their side. This can happen in our lives when we're having a difficult time and we've come across a fixer. One of our friends or loved ones who is a fixer, who is uncomfortable. The fixer wants to fix your emotions because the fixer is uncomfortable with your emotions. This is not a judgment. This is just a statement. People who are fixers are often people who are uncomfortable with their own big emotions and thus are uncomfortable when others around them express their big emotions. They want it to go away as quick as possible. So a fixer, like all the animals in this book with Taylor, they come in to fix the problem. They offer advice to fix your feelings. The problem with the fixer is that many times, again, because the fixer is coming from a place of ego, when we don't take the advice of the fixer, like when Taylor didn't take the advice of the bear or the kangaroo or the snake or any of the animals that gave suggestions for how he should fix his big feelings, when he didn't take their advice, they walked away angrily. They walked away upset. And maybe you've encountered people in your life that's like this, that when what you're looking for is compassion, understanding, being heard, you might encounter a person who tries to fix your problem. When you speak your problem to be heard, they jump in to fix the problem. And if you do not take their advice, they could also find themselves, just like the animals, walking away angrily because you didn't take their advice. And then the mindset becomes, well, if you didn't want to take my advice, why did you ask? And it comes up, it bears repeating that when we are confiding in someone, sharing our upset, we are not necessarily asking for fixers. Taylor didn't ask the animals to come and fix his problem. They observed that he was upset, and they came in to try to make him not upset. Now, this is well-meaning behavior. Again, when we try to make someone feel better when they're feeling low, we're not doing it out of malicious intent. We're doing it because we want to see the person we care about in a better mood. We want to see them feeling better. But in that same token, we're trying to manipulate their feelings. We're trying to manipulate them into feeling something different rather than validating the feeling they're in. Now, I want to turn this into a conversation inward. We do this to ourselves as well. If we were raised in environments where the people around us tried to fix our feelings or told us, minimized our feelings, told us that the things that we were upset about were not worth being upset about, told us, dry your tears, you're a big crybaby. Again, referring to many of us who were raised in the Generation X or older millennials or even mid-millennials. We're often told that our feelings were inconsequential, that they were unimportant in the grand scheme of things, and that we needed to just stuff them down and not feel them. So those people around us they love us and care about us, but the message they teach us is that our feelings are shameful, that we can't show people when we are feeling big feelings because nobody wants to see it, because it's hurtful. And again, I want to reiterate, oftentimes the people who react that way don't want to see our big feelings because they don't know how to handle their big feelings, and therefore cannot offer any advice in that direction. And that makes people feel uncomfortable. When they are in a situation that they can't fix, now they have to be in a position of sitting with the discomfort of someone else. And this is a hard thing for many people because they cannot sit with their own discomfort. And that's what I'm referring to in here when we talk to ourselves in the same way that other people have spoken to us. When we have our big feelings, we might try to run from them. When we're feeling sad, we might try to push away the sad feeling instead of letting ourselves feel it. We might try to, when something doesn't go our way, like with Taylor's tower come crashing down, when things in our lives come crashing down, we might find ourselves in a position where we try to fix everything. We feel upset. We feel hurt. We feel all of those different feelings. We feel mad. We feel all of those feelings, but instead of allowing ourselves to experience the emotion, we feel the need to act on the emotion. We need to say the thing that's rolling through our head because we're angry, do the thing, hide, run away, all those different emotions that were expressed by the animals coming to Taylor. We experience those same things. And if we don't know how to feel through our feelings and sit with the emotion, we try to run away. We try to fix the emotion, just like the fixers in our lives tried to fix the emotion. But what we learn as we go through the book, as we learned, the true way to help through the feelings is to be like the rabbit. The rabbit didn't come and try to solve Taylor's problem. The rabbit came and sat with Taylor, didn't say a word, didn't speak, just the presence of the rabbit gave comfort. And Taylor said to the rabbit, please just sit with me. Just sit with me. And when we have a friend who's feeling a big feeling, sometimes the best thing we can do is just sit with them, not solve their problem, not try to fix it for them, not try to talk through it like the chicken wanted to, but instead just be there. Our mere presence is a comfort, just like it was with the rabbit and Taylor. The presence of the rabbit gave Taylor comfort. And when Taylor was ready, he was able to express all of those feelings, his anger, his frustration, his sadness, remembering all of those things that all the animals tried to push on him when he was not ready. When he's given the space of just having someone's presence there, gives Taylor the comfort to be able to open up and truly speak all of the feelings that he was feeling instead of being pushed into that. And when he was ready, he was able to rebuild. Now, this works for you too. In that same way, we don't have to push our feelings away. Instead, we allow ourselves to sit with the feeling, sit with the discomfort of the feeling. And when the feeling is ready to go, it goes. And then we can begin to talk about it. Then we can begin to express all of those other nuanced emotions that come along with the first initial emotions. And when we've let ourselves feel the emotion, then we can move forward. We can do this for our friends. We can do this for our spouses. We can do this for our children. When our children are experiencing big emotions, instead of trying to make them feel something different, try to talk through their big feelings, tell them that it's not a big deal, all of those things. Instead, allow our loving presence to be present with them. Allow ourselves to sit there while they experience the emotion. And that is a practice for us to sit with the emotion, because it is uncomfortable to sit with another person who is experiencing big emotions, knowing that we can't help, knowing that we can't jump in and solve it, that we have to allow them to process through in their own time. For those of us who are fixers, for those of us who understand the emotions, we might want to do all of those things, talk through it, remember things, share our own experiences, all of those things. But the more helpful thing to do with our child is to allow them to feel and experience the emotion they're feeling, so they learn how to move through the emotion. Because we need to learn how to move through the emotion. So I want to share another quote with you that works on that same thing. And I keep this up in my office to remind me as I begin to learn to work through my emotions and process through my big feelings when they come up. And this one is a quote by Dr. Rebecca Ray. And it says, sit with it. Sit with it. Sit with it. Even though you want to run, even when it's heavy and difficult, even when you're not quite sure of the way through, healing happens by feeling. So sit with it. It's getting me a little emotional just talking about it, because this is so hard. It is a very hard thing to do. When we experience big emotions, it is incredibly difficult to sit with it and not feed the narrative, not feed the story, not feed the ego dramas that are in there. If you're not familiar with ego dramas, we have an episode that has been put out about that before. You might want to check that out to get a little deeper into ego dramas and what those are. We don't feed the feeling. We sit with the feeling. We allow it, and it is uncomfortable. It makes you, when those voices in your head, when that ego story starts to roll through, when that feeling of, I can't believe they did that, I can't believe they said that, I'm so mad, I feel this, I'm angry, I'm so angry. And then we have that internal dialogue, which may involve cussing out the other person inside our heads. When we allow that dialogue to roll through, it makes us feel like we have to act. Sometimes for me, it definitely felt like I needed to get up and do something. I needed to say something. I needed to do something. And that it's difficult to sit with it because it's heavy and it makes you want to run. It's why people move into addictions. It's why we get into alcoholism and anything else that happens with addictions. It's a way to numb. It's a way to stop feeling the feeling that we're having a very hard, difficult time feeling through, because we don't know how to feel through our feelings. So it's easier to run away from the feeling and numb it out than to experience the feeling. It takes practice. It is a cultivation to learn how to sit with your feelings and not try to run from them or numb them or hide them. Just like with Taylor, we need to be able to learn to be the rabbit to our own selves. We need to learn to be the rabbit to our own inner parts. If you want to check out, if you will, check out the parts episodes if you're not familiar with that. If we sit with our parts when our parts are experiencing big emotions, we can be like the rabbit. And when the parts feel safe, it comes down to feeling safe. When the parts feel safe, when they feel secure, when they feel that there is someone there who will hear them, then they can speak and tell you why they are upset. Then they can speak and tell you what they plan to do and all the big feelings they experienced. And you can be there and you can say to them, yeah, I get you. I'm here for you. You don't have to solve it. You can say, I got it. Yeah, I'm here for you. I got you. I got your back. And sit there with our parts. So how do we learn to sit with it? Well, there are a great many tools out there on how to learn to sit with it. So we can do things like anything that teaches you how to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's the thing, is that there are many times in our lives where we are going to be uncomfortable, and we have to learn to step out of our comfort zone into things that make us uncomfortable and learn how to be okay with situations that are uncomfortable. So we can do things like, for example, cold exposure is something that I hear about relatively often nowadays, with people who practice plunging themselves into ice cold water for a minute at a time, or sometimes longer, because the purpose of this is it resets the nervous system. It allows the nervous system to experience something jarring and allowing us to sit with it and to feel comfortable and not go into a fight or flight state. Another example of this is hot yoga. I am a big proponent. I do hot yoga every week. And the room is typically kept at 42 Celsius, which is very hot. And of course, then you get bodies in there, and the humidity rises and it gets even hotter. And you begin to sweat before you even do anything. Just sitting in a lotus position or a cross-legged position on your mat, your body gets hot and you begin to have sweat happen. And it can feel incredibly claustrophobic. When I first began, it felt oppressive. The heat felt oppressive and claustrophobic, and it felt like I wanted to run. It was so uncomfortable, and I wanted to get away from it. But I had to be comfortable learning to sit with the discomfort and to breathe through my discomfort. And when the panic sensation that said run came up, leave, flee the heat, I had to slowly bring my breathing down and remind my body that I was okay and that I was safe and there was no harm being done to me, that I would be okay. And now over time, a year into my regular practice of hot yoga, I can comfortably sit in the high heat without feeling panicky, without feeling like the need to act. And this is translated outside of my life into just a hot summer day, being able to sit in the heat without feeling like I'm going to pass out, being able to be comfortable, being uncomfortable, and recognizing the true signs when my body says, okay, that's as far as we can comfortably go. Being able to tune into my body better, to hear the signs, to learn to hear what is truly a safe word moment and what is just my body saying this is uncomfortable and I feel like I need to get away, as I begin to practice being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Some of the other things you can do are working on boundaries. That for me, when I first started practicing boundaries, was incredibly scary. I shook the entire time that I spoke about creating a boundary with the person I was setting the boundary with. I shook the whole time. It was very, very, very difficult. I was incredibly uncomfortable setting boundaries. But the more that I set limits on the way that I want people to treat me, the more comfortable I get being able to speak up for myself and to be my own best advocate, to speak on my own behalf of what I don't want, of how I don't want people to treat me or speak to me, or things that I don't want to do. I've been more able to be vocal about those things and be comfortable speaking up for myself. But it has been work to get to the point of being comfortable with being uncomfortable in those emotional situations. And it will be for you as well. Uncomfortable conversations is another one, bringing up topics that are likely to create conflict but need to be discussed. Many people avoid the conversations that need to happen in order for things to move forward because of the knowledge that it would be an uncomfortable conversation, that it's likely to have some conflict or uncomfortable feelings. And because we don't want to feel those feelings, we avoid the conversation, we avoid the topic, we avoid the issue. We might keep things surface level instead of digging a little deeper because we are afraid. We are afraid of how the interaction will go, and we are uncomfortable with that sensation. So we avoid digging into something that might be even more uncomfortable because we don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation. But I will tell you from experience, avoiding having the uncomfortable conversation just prolongs the discomfort. It continues whatever discussion needs to happen, whatever it is that is going on that needs to be discussed will continue, if not worse, because the conversation is now, you know that there's something you want to say about it, but you haven't said it. And now it's pushing your ego on the internal and creating internal frustration. And as we said in our last episode about as within, so without, on perspective, when we get so focused, when our insides are in turmoil, we find that our outside world will reflect the inside turmoil, and your outside world will create chaos and turmoil as well. That relationship that needs to have that talk might get even more volatile because of how volatile you are on the inside. It is much better to have the conversation, even if you have to have the conversation facing away from each other, with your backs to each other and facing away. Because honestly, looking someone in the eye and having an uncomfortable conversation, especially when you are afraid of what their emotional reactions might be, as those of us who are recovering people pleasers, if you are afraid of their emotional reactions, staring them in the face could make things more challenging. It could be more harder for you to vocalize what you need to say because you're cataloging the other person's emotional reactions and you're ready to cease the conversation in the moment if it so happens that that person is unreceptive to the things you're saying. If that is a problem for you, you might find it easier to have those uncomfortable conversations with your back, sitting with that person's back to your back and speaking so they can hear you. That might be easier for you to be able to say what needs to be said without being directly looked at, and open the lines of conversation that way. Just some suggestions. So I just want to wrap up the point about sitting with our feelings and sitting with our emotions and sitting with those who are experiencing big feelings and emotions. The best thing we can do for ourselves and those that we care about is to just listen, to hear them, to hear what they have to say, to hear the perspective they have, to hear how it impacted them on the inside without judgment, without the need to step in and say, I don't believe you, or, oh, that's extra dramatic, or any of those things that may have been said to us and therefore are ingrained in our own vernacular. And then we use that to minimize others because we were also minimized. Instead of minimizing how someone else is experiencing something, it behooves us it benefits us to sit with that person and allow them to give their own account without jumping to defend ourselves if they say something that feels judgmental towards us or critical towards us, without feeling the need to modify their statement to say, well, that's not true. This is how it was, without feeling the need to fix it by telling them how they should approach the problem. Instead, just allowing them to express how they are feeling while we sit there in solidarity with them and just provide comfort with our personage, with our physical being with them. And doing that for ourselves too, when we are feeling big feelings, and just sitting with ourselves and saying, yes, I'm feeling this feeling, and not judging it, not telling ourselves that we should get over it, not doing any of the things that the animals did to Taylor about what we should laugh about it, reminisce, and then none of those things. Just instead, allow ourselves to sit with whatever uncomfortable feeling is arising and to let it be. And just like Taylor, when we are ready, we will move through the emotion. We will move past it, and then we can begin to build again. So, I hope this discussion on sitting with it has helped you. I hope that this is something that you can apply to your own day-to-day life and see if it helps you along the way. If this video was helpful to you, show a like, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that this was good content and you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave a comment if it did, with whatever parts resonated with you. And if this is something, if you feel the need, and you want to give a donation, all of that information is in the description box below. Until next time, fellow humans, keep dropping those things that are holding you back from being your best, your greatest, your most authentic version of you. You deserve it. Love and light. Bye.